welcome to the deep dive. Okay, today we're jumping into something big, a critical look, a really sharp review, actually, of the first Hunger Games movie. The mission here is to sift through this source material and really pinpoint what this review says the film adaptation got right, which wasn't much, and where it mostly stumbled.
It's a great topic. I mean, this film kicked off a huge phenomenon based on those incredibly popular books.
Right.
And just for anyone maybe less familiar, the setup is this future nation, Panem. It replaced America. You've got the super rich capital controlling 12 poorer districts.
And the core idea is just chilling. Every year, as punishment for an old rebellion, the capital holds these games.
Yeah, the Hunger Game.
They pick 24 kids, a boy and girl from each district, by lottery. And then they televise them fighting to the death.
Brutal stuff.
Our main character, Katniss Everdeen, she volunteers when her little sister gets picked. So she goes off with the other tribute from her district, Peeta.
And what's really striking is how the review kicks off, noting this whole concept, kids forced to kill each other on TV, sounds like, and this is a quote, a fairly good real-world solution.
Whoa. Okay, that's a dark way to start. It definitely sets a tone.
It does. But that initial hook with the concept, it seems like it didn't last long for the reviewer. Which brings us to the first major critique. The structure, the pacing.
Okay, yeah, let's get into that. Because the review calls the runtime nearly 2.5 hours. Just far too long. That's surprising for a movie seemingly about a death match.
It really is. And it points to, like, a fundamental imbalance. You hear the Hunger Games, you expect the games, right? Yeah. Fight for survival.
Exactly.
But the actual combat, the part where they're in the arena, it only takes up maybe 30, 45 minutes right at the end.
So you sit there for almost 2 hours waiting. What fills all that time then?
Well, we follow the characters getting ready, training and such.
Okay.
But even that's handled weirdly. The review points out there's actually less screen time for the training than for the games themselves. Seriously. No, like, classic training montage. No Rocky-style buildup.
Nope. Not even that. A lot of the time is spent just showing the difference between the capital and the districts.
How so?
Mostly through, the fashion, the attitudes, really hammering home the wealth gap over and over. Slow introductions, lots of spectacle.
Huh. So it sounds like the film kind of betrayed its own title. You spend 2 hours on setup, maybe thinking the audience needs all that context, but it just drags.
That seems to be the core argument, yeah. They misjudged it. Once you get the premise, you want the action to start.
Right.
And, okay, maybe if the character development during that long wait was amazing, it could work.
But I'm guessing.
No.
Unfortunately, yeah. The review found issues there, too. It moves right into character problem.
So Katniss, it's her story.
Yeah.
But the review says she basically doesn't change. She just stays bewildered and out of place the whole time.
Pretty much. And that's where the pacing problem really hurts. Like, okay, she's bewildered when she first gets to the Capitol. That makes sense.
For sure. It's overwhelming.
But the film spends almost 2 hours just slow cooking home that same feeling. Instead of showing her adapting or learning or changing internally during all that prep time.
But she starts out strong, right? Volunteering for her sister. That takes guts.
Definitely.
But that initial strength just stalls. It doesn't develop across the story.
Yeah.
That feels like, well, basic storytelling, isn't it? Your main character needs an arc, especially over 2 hours of setup.
Exactly. If she's the same bewildered person heading into the games as she was when she arrived, that's a narrative problem.
And does this reflect in the acting? The review mentions the performances.
Yeah, rated as just passable. Jennifer Lawrence and Josh Hutcherson are okay, apparently, but show a little charisma.
Ouch. Especially with that supporting cast they had. Woody Harrelson as Haymitch, the mentor.
Right, but the review says he has very little involvement.
Wait, really? You get Woody Harrelson and just give him a few lines of advice and then he's gone. That seems like such a waste.
It does feel like it.
Yeah.
Then there's Lenny Kravitz as Cinna, described as softly spoken and a little bit too creepy.
Okay.
And Stanley Tucci and Elizabeth Banks play these really flamboyant capital types.
Right, the over-the-top ones.
Yeah, but they're just sort of there, outlandish, but with very little actual impact on the plot. They show up, do their bit, and leave.
And Donald Sutherland as President Snow.
The review just says he's pretty much Donald Sutherland and wasn't even sure why he was really needed in this film.
So it sounds like they went for flashy names over maybe giving the characters meaningful things to do or say to each other.
That seems to be the implication. The supporting cast were more like set dressing, adding to the spectacle rather than deepening the story during that long buildup.
Okay, all right, let's shift a bit. Despite all these criticisms about story and character, The review did have some good things to say about the visuals, right?
It did, yeah. Visually, it's called pretty decent.
And refreshingly low on CGI compared to other blockbusters around then.
Exactly. The source mentions things like Wrath of the Titans and Battleship being these huge CGI fests. Hunger Games apparently kept the CGI mostly to the control rooms, which was seen as a plus.
And the look of the world, the Capitol versus the arena.
That worked well, according to the review. The Capitol is this shining beacon of expense and vulgarity, which contrasts really effectively with the games arena, the forest, which is described as harsh but pretty.
Okay, so visually, some strong points. But then the review hits two major annoyances.
Right. Things that really grated. The first one is about the tone, specifically tied to the film's rating.
Ah, the 12A rating, which is tricky for a story about, well, kids killing kids.
Very tricky. The reviewer argues this rating forced them to sanitize everything. You have this incredibly dark concept, but you can't actually show the brutality.
So how do they handle the violence?
With the mega shaky cam, is how the review puts it, lots of fast cuts, blurry action where nothing is clear.
So you can't really see what's happening. Less a style choice, more censorship by camera work.
That's the suggestion, obscuring the violence to keep the rating down.
And the aftermath.
Yeah.
The consequences.
Also glossed over. Weapons stay clean, wounds are small and neat. There's no real sense of the physical horror of how people are dying. It kind of undermines the whole point, doesn't it?
Absolutely. If the Capitol is meant to be monstrous for forcing this, but the violence looks tame, it loses its punch. The critique in the books relies on that horror.
Which leads to the second visual annoyance, the fashion.
Yes, the futuristic fashion of the Capitol elite. This ties back to the film's spending ages showing the wealth gap.
Okay, what was the issue?
The reviewer calls the look for the Capitol's high society absolutely ridiculous pantomime dames.
Pantomime dames, wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's vivid. So not chic dystopia, more like circus clowns.
Kinda, yeah. Over the top to the point of absurdity. And it's jarringly contrasted with the people from the districts who are dressed like 19th century workers.
So the visual contrast is just too much, too on the nose.
Yeah, seen as heavy-handed. An obvious, almost clumsy way to show how the other half live. The reviewer felt it was distracting.
Did they suggest other films handled futuristic fashion better? They did. Luc Besson's The Fifth Element gets a shout-out for having wild costumes but making it feel more integrated, not creating this bizarre split between the rich-looking, utterly ludicrous and the poor-looking historical.
Another case of style over substance, maybe? Pulling you out of the story.
Seems like it. Just another irritation for this particular reviewer.
Okay, so let's pull this all together. We've got critiques on the pacing way too slow. Characters pretty static, especially Katniss. Supporting cast, talented but wasted. Violence sanitized. And costumes jarringly ridiculous for the elite. So the final verdict from this review is, well, pretty damning. They found the film extremely boring.
Ouch, yeah. And they suggest the story just works way better as a book. You know, where your imagination can do the heavy lifting that the film failed to do with its slow pace and just okay performances.
But they don't just slam it, right? They offer an alternative.
They do, a very specific one. If you like the idea of the Hunger Games, the review basically says, forget this, go watch the Japanese film Battle Royale.
Battle Royale. Often cited as a precursor or inspiration. How does the review compare them?
Directly. It says Battle Royale has a similar concept, kids forced to fight, but it actually delivers on the premise. It's fast, gritty, realistic, violent, shocking.
So everything this review felt, the Hunger Games movie wasn't.
Exactly. It also mentions the connection to older stuff like The Running Man, but Battle Royale is presented as the true, uncompromised version of this kind of story.
Interesting. It sets up a stark contrast.
It really does. And it leads into this this final provocative thought that the source material kind of leaves us with.
Okay.
We know Suzanne Collins, who wrote the books, was doubly involved in the film, co-wrote it, co-produced it. You'd expect it to be faithful.
Right, which usually pleases book fans.
Usually. But the review notes this recurring comment from fans wishing the movie had been darker and gritty.
Huh. So even with the author involved, fans felt it pulled its punches.
Exactly. So the question becomes, you know, how much does that pressure for a big commercial hit for that broader audience rating force an adaptation to water down its core themes, especially themes this dark?
Even when the author's right there trying to steer it.
Yeah. It really highlights that tricky, maybe impossible balancing act between staying true to complex, mature source material and making a blockbuster movie that needs to appeal to, well, almost everyone. It leaves you wondering if some stories are just fundamentally compromised when they make that leap.